This is TLV1.
The Tel Aviv Review.
Hello and welcome to the Tel Aviv Review. I'm your host, Gilad Halpern. Every week we bring you conversations with authors about books and research and other things that we like. And if you like us, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter. All you have to do is go to our homepage, that's tlv1.fm/Tel Aviv Review. Scroll down to the bottom and click the big red button that says Patreon. Click and support us. Some of you have been doing this for months and years, and we just cannot thank you enough. This episode is part of a series in partnership with the Israel office of the Konrad Adenauer Foundation that we like to call Israel Behind the Headlines, delving deep into and unpacking issues underlying our lives here in Israel. My guest today is a Benedictine monk. He is the abbot of the Dormition Abbey in Jerusalem and the Tabka Monastery in the north of Israel. He holds a PhD in theology from the University of Vienna in Austria, in which he focused on the history of the Eastern churches and the theological and historical roots of Jewish-Christian dialogue. More recently, he worked for the German Foreign Office, developing a religion foreign policy division within the ministry. He has lived in Jerusalem on and off since the year 2000. Abbot Nikodemus Schnabel, hello and welcome to the Tel Aviv Review.
Thank you for having me.
So you were recently in the news when a warden at the Western Wall approached you and asked you to remove your cross, the cross that you were wearing. That incident was captured on camera and sparked a worldwide controversy, mainly here in Israel. I think part of it was because it was caught on camera. But my question to you is, how unusual is this incident?
Yes, this incident was unusual in that framework because normally the visiting area, we are not talking about the prayer area. It's very important to point that very clearly out. It's like a public space, and no Jewish man is obliged to wear kippah on that place, and it was really stopped by to say, please take off your cross. And this is very unusual, but maybe your question, it's linked to another phenomenon. How unusual is that there are different kinds of communication with me in the old city of Jerusalem, and that's true. So I can really say, especially in the last weeks and month, I really see an uprise, how should I formulate it, that people attack me, spitting on me, attacking me verbally, classical phrases, go home to Italy, although I'm a German citizen, or some also push me. But on the other hand, it's also true, more and more people approach me and say, please, you are part of Jerusalem. Don't
Who are these people? Jerusalemites? Just random people on the street?
Random people on the street. Jerusalemites, but very often also Jewish Americans, very often. So one said, yes, I'm from Wisconsin. I saw that, and really, I'm so ashamed. Please, really, you're part of Jerusalem. And I feel very linked to these people because I have the feeling we have two different approaches to this complicated, holy, unholy, wounded city of Jerusalem. I think there are one group of people, and I feel very familiar with this vision. It's really that Jerusalem has this incredible, beautiful taste of three religions. So it's holy for Judaism, it's holy for Islam, it's holy for Christianity. And I think sometimes for agnostics or atheist people, it's a very challenging city because it's so full of religion, full of prayers, full of religious desires. But it's a beauty for me. I can really say, if the Jews have their holidays, I enjoy that. If the Muslims have, for example, Ramadan, I enjoy it. And also if the Christians have, because there are also different denominations, calendars of Christianity, and I enjoy that, is really the mixture. This mixture is Jerusalem. And I see, on the contrary, people, and I have the feeling they are now stronger than ever, people who want to, I think in their self-descriptions, like we have to make order. and they want Jerusalem only as a Jewish city, or only as a Christian, or only as a Muslim city, and this is really a pity.
And you're saying that the hostility has risen considerably over the last few weeks and months. Has it taken any organized form, or is it just like, random incidents as you walk down the street? Do you feel, not just unsafe as a Christian monk, but do you feel that there's like I wouldn't even say persecution, but something approaching that?
And persecution for sure not. Persecution, it's the wrong word. It's hostility. It's a kind of narrow-minded identity search. Let's put it in that way. I call these people very often like hooligans of religion. Because if, as a German, we love soccer very much. And, you can say, oh, yeah, soccer, it's so problematic because there's violence, people abusing alcohol, and, there's all the negative aspects. But I would say, come on, do you really think the world is a better world without soccer? I don't believe that, because it's also about team playing. It's also about really families coming together. It's really, it's such a wonderful thing. And for me, it's like the same with religions.
So following your analogy, I would say that the worst thing that could happen is that the Jews win the World Cup of religion. Right?
Okay. Yeah. No, but in that way, this I love. I love really to have conversations, discussions with rabbis, with Muslim scholars, with other Christian scholars, also with atheists. That I love. And in that way, it's not about winning or losing. It's more appreciating the other tradition to really say, okay, wow, this is an aspect. We don't have that in our tradition so strong, and it's really, it gives like a new ingredient to the whole world of religion, of faith. This I enjoy and I love and I like that. And this is the positive aspect of Jerusalem. Mm. But we have these hooligans who say, no, it's only our city and all others are not another ingredient, a wonderful ingredient to that city, but they are a threat and they have to go out.
Do you feel that there's been some change in the attitude, whether that change was positive or negative towards you from officials, whether it's religious officials, Jewish or other, if it's city officials, if it's government officials, other than the hooligans on the street? Has there been any change in attitudes overall?
Yes, we have to differentiate. I think what it's positive, to start with the positive aspect, it's really more and more rabbis approach me and write me and say, please come and visit my synagogue. May I invite you to Erev Shabbat, to Shabbat dinner. And so this is really, I cannot accept all the invitations, because I cannot say every Friday night to my brothers, bye-bye, I have an invitation. But this is wonderful, really, it's heart-touching how many rabbis really speak out and are very clear to say, this is not what is Judaism, this is not what is my faith. But on the other hand, there is an silence, yes, and ignorance if it comes to the politicians. And on the contrary, it's not only silence. For example, some Jewish scholars organized a very important conference, in my point of view, about why some Jews, again, it's a tiny minority, but why some Jews are spitting on Gentiles, on non-Jews, especially Christians. And this conference was really, there was a boycott from the Israel Foreign Ministry against that conference. And this is really not a so good experience, because I think we should...
Because they didn't want to raise the issue? What was the reason behind that boycott?
What I understood, there was it's one-sided. It's
right.
Not. But come on,
can you justify spitting on? They wanted someone to justify.
No,
what do you mean?
No, I can say really, I never spit on any Jew, and I won't do it. Okay. And this is really But I can give another example. For example, in Germany, we're very, very sensitive about the problem of anti-Semitism. If you speak about anti-Semitism, there are not two sides. There's only one side. It's an ugly side, a horrible side, and we have to say this is unacceptable. We don't want a Europe or the world where anti-Semitism is acceptable. this is hate. Hate is no kind of a free expression of opinion. And I said also, if we are facing hate crime from one tiny group, and it's very clear where the perpetrators and where the victims, where's the other side?
but these are attitudes towards you as a clergyman, as a community leader. I wonder what it's like for the average Christian in Israel these days. And I've learned, I did not know that there's a sizable Christian Catholic community in Israel, known as the invisible Christians. I mean, we don't really see them as a community, but they exist.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out, because you're coming to my own biography. Before I was elected abbot in February this year, I was for 2 years patriarchal vicar. So it means one of the deputies of the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem. That's the wonderful name of the head of the Roman Catholic Church, so the Bishop of Jerusalem, Pier Battista Pizzaballa. I was one of his deputies, and I was in charge of all the migrants and asylum seekers. And we are speaking about 100,000 Catholics who are working in Israel, yes, as invisible people. For example, my best example is if you want to meet my people, and Ben Gurion at the airport, the people who clean the toilets there, they are all Catholics. They're all Indians. This is, I would say, this is my people, my Catholics. The same is with the caregivers, very often from the Philippines. You see them also on the streets in Tel Aviv, very often. Also construction workers. And in the agricultural sector, you find these people. Yes, and of course, they're invisible because they are doing jobs who nobody else wants to do, and they're very important, and they're kind.
But I think that average Israelis don't really see them as Christians, let alone Catholics.
Yeah, but this would be wonderful if Israeli would recognize that these people are Christians too, because I think we have this misunderstanding or the misperception that Christianity is equal, let's say, to the European or North American West, rich people, wealthy people, white people who are, I don't know, have a history of being the leaders of the world. And this group, it's a very, very tiny phenomenon in Israel. It's like maybe if you want, like we as German-speaking Benedictines or some Italian Franciscans or some French Dominicans. But if you see on the one hand, you have the local Christians who are mostly Palestinians, or the big number of Christians, especially Catholics in Israel, are more, let's say, modern slaves. These are not people. They are not white. They are not powerful. They are really people from Far East who are really from the weaker part, let's say, of this planet.
And other than religious services that you give them and religious guidance, do you do any lobbying on their part? What was your role as their as the patriarchal envoy to these communities?
Yes, there was many different tasks. So one was, of course, to be with them in the pastoral way. So really to celebrate liturgy with them on very unusual places, very unusual times, because very often, if they're caregivers, they have to be with their employers. And so very often I made visits at midnight or 1 or 2 in the morning, because then the employer is sleeping. They were free to pray or to join a liturgy. Also, we have to find places, because where the church buildings are not these Christians. These Christians live in Petah Tikva, Herzliya Pitua, Ranana. This is not places. If you speak with Christians think about Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Nazareth. But in these places we have tiny, tiny migrant communities. The biggest one is in Tel Aviv, and others are really places who no Christian on that planet really had ever heard, because they're really Jewish Israeli places at the coast. But there's a lot of work. there's a lot to do, and there are these people, but there are no church buildings, so we have to find places. So gyms, open areas, and also to find, very often the most important day, it's Friday evening, Erev Shabbat, when they celebrate the Sunday Mass. So this is one part, because they have a really strong desire for the sacraments and really to pray. And yes, and the others is to also to support them in the social way, and because they're very homesick very often, you can imagine. And these people are really heroes, especially it's very often single women. Of course, they are also a target for exploitation, also sexual exploitation, others. And we as a church, my dream was, to make it very short, to create safe spaces where they can be weak, where they can really find very often religious women. It's a women's world. 90% of these people are women because they're caregivers. And so the religious women are there to have really a listening ear, to support them. And also, to support in the different needs, especially if they become pregnant, then problems become more difficult. Because I don't want to go into details, but there are really many challenges, and really for me it was really very intensive years. And I say really these sisters and brothers are closer to God than I am, because these people left their home country. And it's often like a contract with their biography. They know it's 5 years of hard working, but they want to earn money that their children have a better life, better future than they have.
Yeah. Do they feel also this increase in hostility that you were talking about earlier in recent? I mean, is it something that affects the whole community, even the invisible part of it?
Yes, of course. In that way, they are like a double target because they're Christian, but they experience more racist attacks because, of course, very obvious, they are not Europeans, they are not white, and they are not Jewish in Israel. So, and of course, and they're doing jobs who are not creating great respect. And they feel like on a daily basis that they are. Some treat them not like really human beings. Yeah.
Is there any systemic effort to address that and counter the growing hostility towards Christians? You said earlier that the government is not doing much, but I'm talking about maybe the rabbinical establishment and many rabbinical organizations in this country, other than those individuals that you say that invite you to Erev Shabbat, etc., but something that is more on the organizational plane.
Yeah, we are working on that. As a church, we are trying to raise awareness. I have a feeling this is, let's say, the good aspect of the current situation. Maybe you can. You can feel that the current government, it's not totally disconnected from some developments we face. And what I see on the other hand, because there are some developments who are, for us as minorities, are not so joyful, to make it very euphemistic.
Right.
But I see there's like a counter... there's a counter response.
A backlash.
Yes, a backlash. Thank you for the word. Yes, because I think people who are in the past were more neutral. They have no opinion about that. Now they are really discovering aspects they were not aware of it. And I have really the feeling, especially in the world of religious Jews, of some rabbis, there's a new approach to see, okay, interesting, a few things come up. Let's really have a closer look to it. So, but I have the feeling that's the reason why I'm not so speaking so directly and speaking out, because these invisible Christians are very vulnerable. And what I learned, sometimes you can help them more, not going to the media, make it public statement, but to try to help also in an invisible way. And this I can really say, really from the bottom of my heart, there are many, many, many wonderful Israelis, Jewish Israelis, who are really aware of the situation of these migrant asylum seekers and doing a lot,
Yeah. I want to ask you, maybe you can tell us a bit about this sort of interfaith dialogue that you do with Jewish counterparts and how it is informed by your academic research. As I understand it, look at the historical roots of the Jewish-Christian dialogue, in the sense that even before the church, the official church, decided to accept the Jews as legitimate interlocutors, it had existed in a Christian tradition long before that.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Yes, because I think we have this ugly history of anti-Jewish tradition in Christianity, and I think we have to be very clear. This phenomenon of anti-Semitism has also one root in the Christian anti-Judaism, and this is, I think we are very, very aware about that, and also the current Pope and also the predecessor really point that very out. And it's very clear you cannot be a Catholic. I can speak only for my denomination, but you cannot be a Catholic and anti-Semitic. It's not going together. It's really it's not possible. But we forgot that we also have a tradition, not so strong, not so prominent, of appreciating in Christianity, and especially in Christian liturgy, our Old Testament roots, our roots with the people of Israel, and also with the Jewish faith. And this was part, or the main part of my thesis, my doctoral thesis. It was because in Jerusalem, if people come, Catholics come, they're very surprised that they enter the church, and then they are confronted with, yes, hello, today we celebrate St. Abraham, or we celebrate St. Moses. And then people say, okay, well, this is Old Testament figures. Well, we are a Christian church, what's going on here? And in Jerusalem, we have this tradition. We celebrate really all these saints of the Old Testament, of the Hebrew Bible, of the Tanakh.
Can you say in what way they are relevant for the Christian faith?
Yes, because our Bible, the Christian Bible, has two parts. And one part is equal to the Jewish Bible, the Tanakh, so the Hebrew Bible. I think it's also for many Jews interesting to hear that we really, what is the Tanakh? It's also it's the first part of our Bible. Of course, we have then the New Testament, then we agree that we disagree. So, of course, but also the authors of the New Testament, St. Paul, he was Jewish, of course, and all the others were Jewish, and Jesus was Jewish, and Mary was Jewish, of course. It's also a Jewish Bible, but of course, there's the interpretation we Christians have that Jesus was not only a great man, a great rabbi, but we believe that he was true man and true God, and there it's a part we Jews and Christians agree that we disagree, but especially the Old Testament. For example, me as a monk, I'm praying 5 times a day Psalms. The Psalms are part of the Hebrew Bible. They are also prayed in the synagogue in another style, another kind of singing, but it's the same. And so on. I think there we have really a common ground. And I know in the academic world, especially people who are researching about Bible, are really now have a lot of interreligious approaches, Jewish-Christian approach about the Bible. Not only the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, but also the New Testament. But I'm an expert in liturgy, and we have, because to make it very short, I think if we want to change the Christian attitude towards Judaism, it's not enough to have wonderful papers, to have wonderful conferences, because then you are in this, ivory tower of experts who are very happy about that. But I think if you have to touch the hearts. Really, I think religion, it's also a lot about emotions. It's not only about intellectual approach. It's also an emotional approach. and their liturgy is very helpful. And this is the part what I found out, that we have a very long-standing tradition in the Catholic Church to venerate these Old Testament saints in church buildings. If you go to Venice, we have many of these churches dedicated to an Old Testament saint, or in hymns, in litanies, and really in really liturgical feast days for these figures. And what I like, and this is, I think it's so important, because I think there are two dangers in the Jewish-Christian dialogue. One is, one extreme is, oh no, we Christians, we don't touch any Jewish thing, because it could be that we are like thieves to take something away, and we are not allowed to touch the Jewish heritage. I would say this really a pity, this approach. The other approach, to be honest, I hate more. It's if people say, okay, we're Christians, let's celebrate Pesach, let's celebrate the Seder evening, let's celebrate Shabbat. Come on, this is really I don't like,
well,
because
it's over the top.
Yes, yeah, because this is not okay. You know, how would I feel as a Christian if Jews said, okay, let's celebrate Last Supper? Come on, this is. Yeah. I would say there is really a thing. Okay, if I'm invited, okay, I can enjoy, but I'm a guest. It's very clear. So, and what I like, I think, between these two extremes is a good way to say, yes, we appreciate very much our common heritage, our common ground, but we do it in our way. And this, for example, I really appreciate, for example, to say, let's celebrate Abraham, really in our way, in a Christian way, but it must be clear in every sentence, he is also, and number one, a great figure for the Jews. And not only for the Jews, also for the Muslims. And I think this is really a treasure we have to rediscover, especially in our times, really to say where there's so much misunderstanding, so much hate, that we say, no, look, we have a common ground as Jews, Christians, Muslims. And this would be really wonderful if we in Jerusalem don't copy the other. I don't play to be a Muslim or to be a Jew. I'm a Christian. But let's approach in our own way the same topic.
Yeah. Is this attitude being answered positively by your Jewish interlocutors in the sense?
Yes.
I mean, it is still a Jewish majority country. I mean, you are in a predominantly Jewish environment doing all this. And I wonder, because recently we had Professor Karma Ben Yohanan here. I don't know if you know her from the Hebrew University, who's a scholar of Christianity. Who recently wrote a book about the Second Vatican Council, where the Vatican changed its attitudes to...
Thanks Nostra Aetate.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And one of the things she claims in her book was that she writes about the Jewish response to Vatican II, in the sense that it took the Jewish establishment a long time to understand that the Christians are, that the Vatican, the Catholic Church is genuine in that approach. It wasn't some sort of ruse or yet another, form of hostility. Do you get that as well, or is it an opportunity to engage in real dialogue?
Yes, it's very interesting. I would say both. On the one hand, I'm very, very happy that also this Jewish-Christian dialogue is going into a new phase, it's because for example, the Second Vatican Council was very clear. You have the perpetrators, the Christians, and you have the victims, the Jews, because it's very clear there is also no gray area in that. And now it's interesting because now we said, okay, we are very clear about that history. We want to have a new approach. For example, we as Catholic Church, we are totally in opposition for missionary activities towards Jews. We are very clear in opposition. We say, no, this is unacceptable. And now we see what I see also we in Israel, now Jews are majority. Now Christians are cleaners, caregivers, and others. So it's not only about that there's one powerful, mighty religion and one religion was also victims. Now also Jews are here in Israel, vice versa, now in the powerful position, and the Christians are in the weak position. And now this is extremely interesting because now dialogue becoming more let's say on an eye level, because it's not only, and this is very interesting that you find now new documents, new approaches, new conferences who are more interesting because, this is, for example, what I said, that Jewish scholars make a conference, why some Jews spit on Gentiles. You would say 100 years ago, it was clearly spitting on a Jew as a Christian was, I'm very sorry for that. I feel really ashamed. But this was an attitude you can find in Europe very often. And now you have the phenomenon, what's going wrong now? And this is very interesting. And I think the next decades and years would be very interesting because now we are, as Jews and Christians, searching together how we, and on an equal level.
No, it's really interesting how interfaith dialogue is being affected by the shifting power relations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I want to ask you briefly about the Religion Foreign Policy Division. Yeah. It's interesting because what you claim and I read some of the things that you wrote about it in German. I'm very proud of that. It took me forever, but I ended up reading some of it.
My respect.
It's interesting because what you claim is actually pretty self-evident, and that is that churches are probably are big, perhaps the biggest civil society organizations in the world, and they can be tapped into when it comes to so-called track to diplomacy, everything that is, foreign policy other than the official interstate one. Can be relegated to an extent to the church. Is it something that is not happening or happening not enough? How do you see it?
Yeah, I think it's not happening enough. And now I'm speaking as a German because I was a part of this division in the German Federal Foreign Office. Yes, there is, of course, it's not totally new, it's now, but I would say, especially in Western Europe, we have this approach, religion is, yes, it's a phenomenon of the past. We have secularization, people are leaving the church has a lot of scandals and problems, so don't take religions too serious. If you want it as a private person, do it, but don't bother me. But this is a tiny phenomenon if you compare it to the whole world. So 84% of human mankind is religious, and United Nations often speak now also about 85%. So if you go to Asia or Africa or Latin America, it's a really tiny phenomenon to say no. I'm a non. I don't believe.
So on a global level, religiosity is actually rising. There are more and more religious people.
Yes.
The proportion is growing.
Yes, if you want, we have areas. Let's say Western Europe. But of course, Australia, New Zealand also. Okay, United States is a very, very special area. There is this, we need our own podcast to speak about religion in the United States. So you have regions where religion is declining. But if you see where is the majority of the world population, for example, speaking about India or China and others, there is really another approach, and there is religion. Of course, different kinds of religion. It's not always the church, and also, it could be also in a private way. But you can say in the whole world, it's a majority opinion that there is a God, a creator, a higher being, that we are dependent, that there's something, and it's not only what you can see on earth. So there's something above, there's a kind of responsibility. And this, I think it's more and more important, because if you really speak only on the political level, there was one saying, I think Henry Kissinger was it, who said there are only small countries and countries who are not recognized that they are small. And I would say it's more and more true, because if you see the big challenges of our time, if it's climate change, if it's migration, if it's we have this globalization. We're like in a globalized world. You cannot solve. Also, not big, powerful countries like the United States of America. They cannot solve problems by their own. You need the multilateral approach. And who is the experts for multilateral approaches are the religions, because every religion knows what it means to be a minority, and most of the religions also know what it means to be a majority. And we have this international dialogue. For example, the Pope is now going to Mongolia, where Christianity is tiny. But then you can see like states like Brazil or Italy or others where Catholic Church has a lot of influence. But there is a globalized dialogue. And if it comes especially climate change, environment, migration, this is exactly where religions are really very into it. And you have, for example, this very important NGO, Religions for Peace in New York, who are really approaching phenomena where politicians very often not so clear, because politicians have the problem. Again, I have to make it clear, I'm a great fan of democracy. Democracy is extremely important. I defend democracy, but democracies have this weak point. Politicians want to be re-elected. And sometimes if you're very clear about some things, it's not so popular. Religions have the privilege to be unpopular, to really speak out the truth, to say we have to save this planet. We cannot live in the lifestyle we have now. We have to care about the people who are on the Mediterranean Sea, or others with the migrants and so on.
So basically the purpose of the Religion Foreign Policy Division is to increase cooperation between the religious institutions and state institutions?
Yes, to let's say, not only to be in this narrow dialogue, because this is a very old-fashioned style of diplomacy. It's like every state, it's like a pyramid, and only the peaks of the pyramids are talking, and then everything is solved. No, I would say the whole pyramid has to talk. And so I like it's called this diplomacy of societies. And I would say the biggest civil society player on that planet are the religion.
But many people would say that, I mean, again, looking at this place that we live in, that more than the opposite, religion gets in the way.
Totally, I totally agree with that. And then thank you for that remark. Because, again, I think religion is part of the society, of the civil society. I think... I know. Also, there are really.
It's like the football.
Yes. Because what I want to say now, I know many of other religions leaders maybe are hating me now, but I have to say it because, in my opinion, religion it's really part of the society, civil society. Religion has not the best experience for themselves if they become part of the politics, if they have power. I think the religion should have the power of the word. Like I would say the religion's a little bit like the president of Israel or the president of Germany. You know, it's a representative. It's a power of really to convince people because you have good arguments. You can really say, I care. But I'm not the institution who has the power. I'm the institution who's a little bit like a global conscious, who really say, really, do you think about the vulnerable people on that planet? Do you really think about the nature? Do you really think about this and that? What is not so popular, but you can say that the religions maybe are the advocates of the poor and the vulnerable.
Well, wishing you the best of luck with this. I would like also to thank you for joining us today, Abbot Nikodemus Schnabel, the abbot of the Dormition Abbey in Jerusalem and the Tabka Monastery in the north of Israel. Thank you very much and good luck with all this.
Thank you for having me.
And also many thanks to Itai Shalom, the manager of TLV1 Studios, and to the Konrad Adenauer Foundation for their generous support. And now we've got a request, because most of you listen to us on the Apple Podcasts app, and would like to ask you to please consider writing us a review of any kind, good, bad, ugly, up to you. You too can support us by going to our website and subscribing onto our Patreon campaign. Check out our archive. It has probably close to 1,000 interviews by now. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and most important, join us again next week for another edition of the Tel Aviv Review. And until then, from me here in Tel Aviv, goodbye.